Yes.
I like it.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I have always. Yeah, how do you win? Thank you.
You wait on 2 minutes.
Make it officially 30.
To make it official.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. It's 5:30 p.m. time for the regular McCook City Council meeting to begin. Roll call shows all council members are here. There is a copy of the Open Meetings Act, and it's posted by the entrance to the council chambers and is available for public review. We'll now have the invocation by Jimmy Moncrief.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the moisture that we've been receiving. And my Father, as things need to happen and progress needs to be made, we know that decisions are not always easy, but we thank you that you've given the passion on hearts to serve our community, for the staff that then goes out and does the day-to-days, that we may be a great place to live. We just ask that you protect them and that you give them guidance. Heavenly Father, you give them peace, and as you just continue to rain down upon us. We give you the praise, we give you the glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We'll now do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 1 on the agenda is announcements and recognitions.
And we do have one.
Okay, you're ready.
Well, it is my honor to make the following announcement. We would like to acknowledge Tracy Berkey, who has earned the designation of Certified Municipal Clerk, which is awarded by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. Acronym IIMC. IIMC grants the CMC, Certified Municipal Clerk, designation only to municipal clerks who complete demanding education requirements, have experience in the municipality, and have a record of significant contributions to their local government, community, and state. Tracy was promoted to Deputy City Clerk in June of 2019. The Nebraska Municipal Clerks Association has a week of clerk school annually in March, which offers sessions approved by IIMC. After completion of 5 years of school, clerks should have most of the requirements met for the CMC certification. COVID hit Tracy's first year of school. School that year consisted of virtual sessions 8 hours a day for 5 days. What an endurance test for her first year. She completed her 5th year this past March. We would like to congratulate and acknowledge Tracy's educational accomplishments and achievement on this milestone. She is a very dedicated and valuable employee to the city of McCook. We are fortunate to have her on our staff. So congratulations, Tracy.
Okay, what is associated what now again?
It's the certified municipal clerk.
That's wonderful.
He's got radio, so that's why.
Oh.
It's
It's the international, what is that, IIMC?
It's right there.
That's right.
It was right in front.
Oh, yeah, International Institute of Municipal Clerks, so it's international.
You know, we can never get Leanne to go to council close-up, maybe.
Tracy, you know?
There you go.
Cancel Tracy, then Leanne.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, we have a proclamation. A, approve the proclamation designating the week of May 19th through 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week and authorize the mayor to sign.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Let's have some discussion.
You betcha. It is Public Works Week, National Public Works Week. This year's theme is advancing quality of life for all. It actually shines the spotlight on the way public works professionals advance our quality of life, whether as a first responder to an unforeseen situation, regular solid waste pickup, or a myriad of other ways they silently serve their community. Public works professionals provide essential services that lead to a healthier, happier, more vibrant community. In the city of McCook, Public Works includes the following departments. Street Department, this includes the highways and right-of-ways, and all the maintenance that goes along with it within the corporate city limits of McCook. We have 5 full-time employees in that department. Myself, I've been here 28 years. Tyler Kalinsky, Public Works Supervisor, has been here 30 years. Randy Zwickel, Equipment Operator 3, 19 years. Paul Younger, Lead Mechanic, 23 years. Steve Miller, Equipment Operator 2, 18 years. The Cemetery Department, 2 full-time employees. Seth Province is our cemetery sexton, 9 years of service with the city. And Ron Leonard, Laborer 1, 3 years of service. The Parks Department, including all parks as well as other city-owned properties, we have 3 full-time employees. Ron Maris leads that group as a maintenance groundskeeper. He has 20 years. Matt Coulter, Laborer 1, 24 years. And Clayton Stevens, Laborer 3 years. Ballparks, including the JC Ball Complex and Felling Field, 1 full-time employee. He's a recent new hire. Kevin Seabrand is our laborer at the ballparks. He takes the place of Dave Cordy, who recently retired. We have a swimming pool that includes a number of seasonal employees. The airport, we have 1 full-time employee, Ken Bonts. He's our airport maintenance operator. He's been with the city 36 years. Recycling, Joel Willers came over to recycling in the Public Works Department from the police department here recently. He has 36 years of service with the city of McCook. Solid waste collection, this includes the residential trash pickup within the corporate city limits. We have 4 full-time employees. Dave Gumry, he's our equipment operator 3, he has 28 years. Rick Lawrence, laborer 1, 14 years. Rick Kinney, refuse collection driver, 14 years. Jerome Bigler, refuse collection driver, 30 years. Rick Province, solid waste superintendent, 34 years. The transfer station itself, we have Ron Lauer, who's our administrative assistant. He's been with the city 21 years. And Tony Rouse, he's an assistant, actually he's a lead mechanic now, 18 years. He works primarily down at the street shop as a mechanic. Solid waste hauling, that's hauling the J-Bar J, driving our semis. Wayne Cook, tractor trailer operator, 8 years. Greg Polnow, tractor trailer operator, 4 years. Years of service breakdown, we have 5 employees that have 30 years or more with the city of McCook. We have 2 employees that are 25 to 29 years, 4 employees 20 to 24 years, 3 employees 15 to 19 years, 2 employees 10 to 14 years, 2 employees 5 to 9 years, and 4 1 to 4 years. As those numbers show, we have roughly 410 years of experience in the Public Works Department with the city of McCook. That averages out to about 18 and a half years of service to the city per employee. Because of the dedication and longevity of our Public Works employees, we currently have the following age range. This is where it gets interesting.
Yes.
9 of our Public Works employees are in their 60s, 6 are in their 50s, 5 in their 40s, 1 in their 30s, and we do have a 20-year-old. So as you can see, there's going to be a huge turnover in Public Works, and it's already begun. So getting people hired is going to be a tall task, but we're up for it. We've hired a couple new ones here recently that have been great additions to the public works department. And honestly, I can't say enough about the guys in my department. They make my job easy. I mean, with that much experience, they just pretty much know what to do. And they're very dedicated. They're always available. And I have nothing but great things to say about them. Very lucky to have them. I think the city of McCook's very lucky to have them. So, any questions concerning public works?
They do a wonderful job. They really do. And yes, they do make your life easy.
Absolutely.
Because they really come through. So
And I appreciate each and every one of them. So.
we just need to hire some more young ones.
Yep, we'll be working on that. We'll be working on that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Kyle,
Yes.
how many total miles of our street? Was it like 77?
50, I'd have to look. I think it's 52. But those aren't lane miles, those are miles.
Okay. And then we take care of the highways.
Yes.
And that's what, like 7?
Our portion, it's about 20, I want to say it's about between 20 and 22. I'd have to look at our
Okay.
document.
Thank you.
And then we have paved alleys and all that fun
Yeah.
stuff too. So
Thank you.
you bet.
Okay,
And the airport is a lot of
Yeah.
as well.
all those in favor vote yea, opposed nay.
5 votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
Okay. Item number B on the agenda is to approve the proclamation designating May 19th through 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week and authorize the mayor to sign. Okay, all set. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Say hi.
Hi, I'm not putting our ages out there, sorry.
Oh, come on, I was just waiting.
It is the EMS week. This is actually the 50th year anniversary for EMS week. So the theme this year is honoring our past, forging our future. So we talked about those folks that have been doing a long time and those folks that are up and coming, and I think you'll learn by our numbers that we have people on both ends of that spectrum. So EMS is it's a very unique thing that we do. It's a team sport. So a lot of times when people call 911 or experience their first emergency, we're the ones that they allow into their homes. So they have to be very comfortable with us to provide that care before they ever get to the emergency room. So nationally, they just went over 500,000 licensed EMS providers in the country. 340,000 of those are EMTs. 126,500 of those are paramedics. So that kind of breaks out the numbers, and then the rest of them are either EMRs or lower levels than that. So locally, we have not, how many years do Counil have experience?
Just go ahead and blurt it out.
We only have 250. Okay, 250 years of experience ranging from 1 year to 34 years. So, and obviously we rely a lot on our full-time folks, but also our volunteer providers who back us up and provide coverage all the time for us. So I'll just go through the numbers here. Michael Bieber, he's an EMT, he's been an EMT for 29 years. Dan Hartwell's a paramedic, he's been a paramedic for 20 years. Mark Cool, an EMT for 29 years. Aaron Kochwire has been a paramedic for 3 years. Don Lanigan is an EMT with us. He's been an EMT for 7 years. Colt McDonald, a paramedic for 16 years. Rick Metcalf, a paramedic for 29 years. Colt Malchik, who's our newest full-time person, paramedic for 2 years. And Joy Malchik, his mom, she's been a paramedic for 19 years, so second generation there. Shaylin Riker, she's been an EMT for 6 years. Nate Renner, he's been an EMT for a year, another second generation emergency provider for us. Steve Renner's his father, paramedic for 29 years. Derek Saylor's an EMT for 3 years. Michael Schuneman, been a paramedic for 14 years, and James Slayton has been a paramedic for 9 years. So that's a list of our full-time and our professional volunteer folks that go out and help us every day and night, all times. So, the one thing I'll say about that group is they make my job so much easier with everything that they do. They're a very dedicated bunch. They do a lot of things behind the scenes that goes unnoticed a lot of times, but I can't say enough about them. They're a great bunch to be around. So, questions?
We're lucky that we've had so many for so long.
Big bunch.
Yeah,
Are our neighboring communities getting any better with their volunteers, or are they still bleeding?
Everyone's struggling. And they're doing some things, and I'm gonna bring some things forward to the next meeting that are from the fire department that may help. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder. The requirements are more and more. Folks are busier. So that's another thing I'll say about this bunch is this is just our EMS personnel. There's others that are volunteer firefighters that when we get behind on calls, when we run through 2, 3, 4 calls at a time, we have volunteer firefighters that show up and help where they can, help carry equipment, help move patients, help do those things. So it's a very dedicated bunch, and there's 10 of us that are full-time, but there's another about 15 that are volunteers that really do a great job for us, and can't thank them enough.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership with them. Okay, council, all those in favor, vote yea, opposed nay.
5 votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and it's approved in one motion. Any item on the consent agenda may, by the request of any single council member or public in attendance, be considered as a separate item under the regular agenda. Council members, do you have anything you want to pull?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Staff? Anything? Okay. How about the public? Okay,
On the consent agenda, I make a motion that we accept items A through E.
I'll second that. We've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay.
Five votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
On the regular agenda, we're going to look at approving resolution number 2024-10 to accept funding recommendation and authorize the mayor to execute all documents required to apply for funding through the USDA, RD, and Northland Securities for $14,497,000 for completion of the wastewater improvements proposed with completed facility plan summary for the proposed wastewater treatment facility upgrade.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Hi.
How we doing?
Hey, guys.
Good.
Well, Chris Miller, moved here in '93, I have 24 years experience.
Okay.
You know David Blau.
Yeah,
Also in the audience, I have Sarah Pierce with USDA.
okay.
So she's one of the people that has in your packet, you have the funding. And then Brad Slaughter, who is also with Northland Securities, which is part of this funding package that we're gonna look at tonight. So we're trying to kill several birds with one stone, so you have the resolution. This is also advertised as a public meeting. That's one of the requirements of some of these funding agencies, so we have that tonight. A lot of these slides that you have seen is the same slides that we had in December 8th meeting. The only update to it is gonna be the funding. Now we have an offer for funding package. At our December meeting, we went through the presentation. We selected what our option would be for our preferred improvement project. We submitted that to what they call the Water Wastewater Advisory Committee. And they sit down as a group and tell us what funding packages they can offer us to try and get us the best deal. So that's what they did. They sent back, and there's a letter in your packet, but they offered 2 funding packages. We're gonna talk about those at the end of which package we want to probably proceed with. To us, the choice is very obvious, but just in case, we're gonna talk about it again. But so like I said, I'm gonna run through these slides real quickly just because it is a public meeting. We want to just refresh everybody's memory so you remember why we're doing this and what we're doing. So we did a facility plan, what we call a facility plan or preliminary engineering report. David has a copy of it right there. The council has it. It's the Bible of your wastewater facility right now. But we looked at your age of facilities, when the last upgrades were, what we need to do for improvements, how do we look at the future? We look at your equipment, what you have and what's been failing, what's been repaired. It's come a long ways, but we also have continuing permit modifications that are gonna come up. We're gonna have what they call ammonia, we're gonna have nutrient removal, we're gonna have some of those issues that we need to deal with in the future. Our plant right now cannot handle that. So we looked at upgrading the plant, and we'll talk about what options we had, but we selected an option then for our best sustainability, growth, and energy that we thought was available. So when we look at the location, like I said, you guys take tours, you probably know where this is at, but in the southeast corner, that is our wastewater treatment facility outlined there in red, in the lower right-hand corner. And when you blow it up, there are 3 big lagoon cells there, but those really aren't part of the wastewater facility. Those are part of our water facility. But we have to somehow get rid of the chloride waste. And right now we have a facility that takes that from the water treatment plant, splits it. The high chlorides go to these lagoons, the lower chlorides we actually take to the plant. So we had an issue there for a while. We didn't have anything to do with it, and it would run through the plant. And you'd be amazed that high chloride is very corrosive to aluminum. If you take a piece of aluminum, dip it in chloride, we had ladders that just went away, they just dissolved. So this facility that was later constructed to try and help eliminate some of those issues. And it was also, we had some toxicity issues. Chlorides are also kind of toxic to some of the bacteria that we use to treat. And so we were having some issues with toxicity. So that's some old past history, but that is why we kind of have those lagoons out there that take up a lot of room. The other one is we looked at the age of the facilities. So your first facility was constructed about 1950. Those are shown in the blue. Some of those have been removed with the black dotted lines around them. So we have some of those that we're still using. The primary clarifier number 1 was some of the original equipment, and one of our digesters, our primary digester in blue, we still are using from the 1950s. Your next upgrade was quite an upgrade actually in 1978. We added another digester, we added some final clarifiers. The RBC, which is rotating biological contactors, that's kind of the meat and potatoes, if you will, of our treatment. That's what really drives our treatment process. It's a fixed film process, and that's where we actually do most of our treatment. And then the admin building was also built in '78. So we had hit some ammonia limits. When we got into 1996, we had UV requirements, so we added the UV system, which is in yellow. And then they did grit removal in 1999, kind of get rid of the sand and gravel was going through and tearing through the pumps and doing things like that. And then 2004, some of you may remember, some of you may not, but we had an EPA consent order that told us that we're going to upgrade right away. So we added the little orange box in the bottom there. We added a biological aerated filter. That was part of the requirement of EPA. Upgraded also our RBCs a little bit with some aeration. And we've been getting along with that ever since 2004. So it's been about 20 years since we had to do anything. So our facility has served us well. It's done a good job. Like I said, when you look at 1950 to present, it's been some time. So we're looking 73 years, 74 years. So we also looked, as we did as part of your study, looking at all the improvements that were needed or what we could do to fix them and improve upon it. We also looked at the basis of design. So our current population is about 7,446, give or take. And we looked at projecting the next 20 years, we looked at probably adding about 440 people. We hope that's the way it goes. McCook's population trends don't really show that much growth, but you guys are doing a great job in your economic development. We're looking at housing developments. We're looking at maybe some infrastructure improvements. So we're being hopefully given the benefit of the doubt. So we did design for this for some population increase along with flows and loadings that go along with that. So the facility is designed for that, and all our facilities were designed for that. Everything we looked at for options. We looked at the do nothing option, which really wasn't due to the condition and the age. It really wasn't something we could evaluate, but as part of the study and what we submitted for funding, we had to look at that option. So always, what can we do if we do nothing? What happens? We looked at rehabilitating what we had. Can we upgrade what we have, add whatever processes we need to make it come into compliance, so we're doing an apples to apples comparison to a new treatment plant. We looked at a sequencing batch reactor. Now this is a process that you put your wastewater in a cell, basically, do all the treatment in the cell through several steps, and then discharge it all in one big basin. The council took a tour, at least a lot of us that could go, we took a tour, looked at these before as we're doing the preliminary engineering report, and looked at pros and cons, talked to the operators, looked at this as one option that we could have, very feasible, and actually this is the one we picked for McCook's process. We also looked at a separate process, they call it the MLE. It is an extended air-type aeration system that could also do the treatment in future conditions, but due to cost, it has to use primary clarifiers. It had some other infrastructure that basically just took this thing out of the budget. So our cost comparison, we looked at upgrades to the existing in order to bring that up to speed. We were just over 17 million, almost 18. We had alternative 2, which was the SBR, the sequencing batch reactor, and we looked at keeping the primary clarifiers. So we looked at trying to use those with a primary clarifier to help with treatment. Rebuilding some of those, we were about 13.8, was really close. The one we selected, not only was it the lowest capital cost, it was the lowest operation and maintenance cost over 20 years. So it had dual purpose. That one actually was the one we selected. It was our lowest cost, both capital and we looked at, like I said, the MLE, and then MLE with new primary, new final clarifiers, which obviously was not the selected solution. So just to kind of remember how this goes out, the new stuff that we're doing is in green, proposed. The new storage building to the northwest of the site is on site. If you ever drive out there, that building is there, it's been built. We're putting in a new headworks building, which is the one that's kind of across the red old, where our sludge beds are. But that one will be screening, so we'll get rid of rags and things like that come down. And we'll also get rid of grit. So we'll get rid of the grit, having a new grit unit. And so that's gonna be our first process, our first line of processing. We're gonna get rid of the solids, basically, that are not part of the biological process. So then there's 2 squares down there that are labeled as RBCs, SBRs. Sorry, RBCs is what we have, SBRs. Oh yeah, I know. You get run on this, and there's also room for a third one. So we need 2 right now, but if we ever need a future, we looked at where we could put the third one, so it's shown there where we go. We're also going to look at our sludge. So we generate sludge, we generate solids out of this. We take them out of the treatment train, and we have to dispose of them. So we looked at possibly an anaerobic digester or some new type of digester, because the one we have is 1950s, and we probably want to upgrade that a little bit. So we have a new sludge line. We looked at considering using that existing building between the 2 digesters, maybe keeping our sludge pumps and things in there. So there'll be some refining on this, on what our process actually looks like once we get it all site surveyed and set it on there, but this is the general schematic of how it's going to go, our pipeline, how they're all connected. And this is just, like I said, we talked about this in some detail at the last time, our December meeting, but the SBR process actually all happens in one tank. We fill up at one tank while we have another tank doing treatment. So there's 2 tanks always, minimum 2 tanks. So we're gonna fill one, and one's doing treatment. And that treatment is, it reacts, it mixes it, it adds air. We have that as our biological treatment process. Then we shut it off the air, we let it settle. We pull the solids out of the bottom of it. We take the top water out, and that's been treated, and it discharges, and then it sits while the other basin now starts treatment, and we start filling this one. So it's a continuous process. It'll handle if we would have, for some reason, a big rainstorm, we have a lot of water coming in, it'll cycle based on the flow coming in quicker. It may not have as well as treatment, but it will treat the water, and it goes in what they call fast mode. So we do have that capability also. So. And just to give you an idea, this is the facility that we toured with Broken Bow. Gives you an idea of an area of what this thing really looks like. So it's 2 big tanks. You see those 2 tanks there, those basins. They have one building there that had a blower that provides air to those during that air process. And then the admin was there, and then they had UV disinfection, which we have, and we will maintain our existing UV. We just upgraded it not too long ago. The one thing that Broken Bow told us, and we knew before, is they said it doesn't include any sort of grit or screenings, which we're going to put our headworks building in and take care of, because every year they have to take one of those out. It has about 2 foot of gravel, solids, and there's no way to get it out but to go down there and bucket it out. So Pat and I think John both kind of told me, you know, you will do that, right? Yeah. So that is the process. Like I said, that's what the green squares look like on our drawing, but this is actually a real picture and aerial of what they look like. As part of this, while we were doing it, we had some collection system improvements. You guys have done a collection system study several years ago. We actually built a hydraulic model of your whole collection system, and slowly we've been wheeling off portions of that. There were two parts of this that we wanted to fix as we go through, and we applied for funding for. One is the S Street, which that green is really hard to see, but the S Street sewer extension. We have some potential developments that may go up there. Right now, we had it just as a line going across there, because we didn't know how we're gonna develop it, so I'm sure depending on what's developed up there, that may change a little bit of where that sewer line goes, but we don't have any sewer up there, and we need it up there if we're gonna do some developing. So that was one of our projects. The other one is we had controls at the car park lift station. We need some new controls, and so that was part of the budget also. All of our lift stations in the last 20 years have been rebuilt, so we have done all those upgrades as we went through. So all your lift stations have been rebuilt. They have been updone in the last 20 years, which is great. Normally you don't see that in a system. So we look at the collection system cost. We had about $660,000 budgeted for the collection system, and that's the controls and the S Street sewer. So this is the important slide for this whole presentation. So when we submitted this, again, after the meeting in December, we just said, let's submit it to the Water Wastewater Advisory Committee, and let's see what we get for a funding package. The funding package is actually in your packets, but we got two offers. One from a USDA and Northridge, which both of them are back here, so that way they can help answer questions if you guys have any. And we got one strictly from what they call the Clean Water SRF. So that is the other program that offered us funding. The difference that we saw was when you look at the capital cost of this, throw some interim interest in there, so I have to borrow some money while we're building it. We looked at borrowing $14,497,000. So we had a combined operation and maintenance cost. You break that into monthly principal and interest and other things, your reserve, your debt reserve, all which your PMF, your financial advisors, are going to help with the rates that you guys have for your sewer system. We talked to them tonight actually before the meeting. But based on USDA's calculations and with this Northridge, they're doing about a half-half split, half bond, half USDA. And they came up with an estimated user cost per month of about $49.64. When we presented this last time, we were looking at about $15. This is about $16. So we were in the ballpark when we first did, before we had any funding. We were close, but this is what they're projecting for an estimated user rate. Now again, interest rates turn quarterly at USDA, so they will change. Hopefully they go down. But this is the best information we have at this time. The other one, the Clean Water SRF, they actually had a projected user rate of $79.25. That was their total estimated cost. So we thought this would be a better option.
Yes.
So I know that was really quick. I know that there may be some questions, and that's why we asked USDA and Northridge to come, because if you want to really get into that, they're the people to ask.
Chris, can you go back to the slide where you show the proposed new site?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like a copy of that. Could you send that to Pat?
Mm-hmm.
Or then, Pat, can you send it out to the council? Because I'd like to have a copy of that, so like, when people say, well, what are you doing? I can say, here's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Please, can you do that?
Yeah, we actually, I sent this out before everybody to make sure that everybody's on the same page before we brought it.
You already have it, Pat, then?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, this gives you an idea. The ones in yellow are all ones that when we're done with this, we'll have to either demo it or do something with those structures. Yeah, so we won't need them for sure. And I know if we leave the building we talked about, we may bid the big RBC building, the rectangular one on the right. That might be a nice building to have for storage. We'd have to fill the floor in, and we have to do little improvements to that building, but it's a lot of square footage there, and if it pencils out, then we could do that. So we thought about bidding that as an alternate and see what that costs, and we can make that decision when we go out for bids. But that would be a great storage building. Maybe Christmas lights, all those things, right?
Oh, yeah.
How would we get those big wheels out there?
So they cut them out.
Just cut them out?
Yeah, there's actually a pile of them, but down there's a whole pile of them that we gotta get rid of yet. that are sitting there we'll have to dispose of, but you have to just cut them out.
Okay.
And then you fill the floor in.
The building itself still in good shape?
Yeah, it's reasonable. I mean, I think we can cut point. Yeah, we can do some improvements to it. I think it'll be good.
The fire training house.
So I think they want to cut some doors in it if we keep it. I mean, so we have some access. But
Yeah. As long as the building's good, why demolish it, right?
well, it's cheaper than building it. You couldn't afford to build that size of building right now there. That's what you could. It'd be expensive. So if we can
Yes.
utilize it, we'll at least take a shot at it, see if we can utilize it.
The government is coming out with new restrictions on ammonia, correct?
Yes.
And we don't meet those right now, correct?
Yes.
Are
So-
there any others coming down the line you can see the government?
So ammonia is one that they're gonna keep tightening, okay? And the problem we have is in that building, that RBC building, the units we have keep failing. And as they fail, our ammonia keeps going up. And we're still making the limit right now, but when they have to take one out for service right now, if we were required to test during that day, it may be really close if we pass.
When it says fail, the shafts actually
Break.
break, so they have to be taken. How many have broken, John? How many do you have?
This
Four
one-
broken.
Yeah, 4 out of 12.
Yeah.
So, and that, that treatment we put in 2004 is what's picking up that slack right now. But there'll come a point without that, we can't pick up the slack anymore. And so that was part of our improvement, is replacing all those, because they were original vintage. That's been their Achilles heel for RBCs, is those shafts break and you have to replace them. And we've talked about this today, I think there's only 2 left in Nebraska that have RBCs. They were a huge thing, they work really good, they're just really expensive to replace. So.
Any other questions? How about you with the USDA? Anything you want to tell the council?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Ms. Mayor and council members. As Chris mentioned, I'm Sarah Pierce with USDA, and I'm in the North Platte office. So just down the road. I do want to give you just a little bit of information about our underwriting standards and how we came to our funding package that Brad and I have been working on. So USDA, and based on the project scope, your current user rate and similar systems of user rates for similar systems across the western part of Nebraska, it was determined that we wouldn't be able to provide any financing, loan-only financing, because your median household income and the cost per user wasn't high enough to justify the need for it. So we basically needed to check in with commercial credit, Brad, and see if he thought what they could do would be feasible for you, or if they could leverage funds with us and get to a good rate and funding package. So we think we did a pretty good job. And we'd love to answer any questions that you have. I know Brad has some more details to share as well. I'll also add our interest rate is 2.125, and that is the poverty interest rate, and we can only give that interest rate for communities that have a health hazard. So we took into account those changes that are coming through EPA or the state regarding your permit requirements coming up. And that's how you were able to get the 2.125 for us.
Because of a health hazard, is that what you said?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, folks, Brad Slaughter, Northland, thanks for having me out. You might remember me from some previous sewage and utility financing in the past, but as Sarah alluded to, our plan of attack was basically to get the most funding we could out of USDA at 2 1/8, because that's economically the best option for the city, and then we would come in with a public package or private package of financing to allow for USDA to come in for the largest portion they could. So logistically, the way that this would work is that we would probably provide the private credit initially on a permanent financing, and we'll probably do it in series so that we don't accrue any interest expenses. You folks are going through the construction process, but probably fund about $7 million through Northland, and then we would issue interest-only notes on the latter part of construction until USDA can step in, because they'll actually come in with their permanent financing when the project's totally complete, when you have a certificate of substantial completion. So I had a conversation with Pat Tara, Nate, and Leanne, the city's in kind of a unique spot. The yield curve is currently inverted, as you folks are probably aware of. Short-term yields are extremely high, while longer-term yields have not proven to be as high. And so the city's actually in a position underneath some IRS arbitrage limitations that you folks can actually borrow at a certain bond yield and then deposit those funds as you see fit until you use them for construction. So we're not necessarily advising you of that, just stating that that's kind of the realistic nature of where the yield curve is. So currently, between USDA and Northland, we anticipate an effective rate currently where the city is at your A+ rating, which is what you had last issue that we did in 2016 and 2021, probably of around 3.14, 3.15% in today's current market. USDA resets their structure. So they're at 2 1/8 or 2.125% currently. That changes in quarter. They're working to get those rates locked and that structure set at that 2.125% for up to a 40-year term.
Yeah, so it's looking like interest rates will possibly increase in July based on the bond index that we were looking at last week. So our goal is to have this project obligated should you choose to pursue it in June. And if you would like to apply for funding with USDA, that process is done online on a system called RV Apply. And M&A has already completed a lot of those screens, engineering screen. I've completed a lot of financial screens, which I'll have Leanne look at to make sure that everything looks reasonable on her end. And then Ms. Mayor, you would just log in using login.gov, which you may be familiar with and may have an account with already. I had to create an account for IRS when I was doing my taxes, so I think it's kind of a familiar thing now. So you would log in, look at over everything, all application documents, you electronically sign, I think 10 documents, just regular federal forms, and then you can submit that and you can get that processed and going. I've also checked in with our national office because there's been concern. Congress has really slashed our water and environmental program budget at the state level and national office level. So I was a little concerned after cooling when they take all the funds from the states, which was this week, and then they're going to hold those reserves at national. So I was kind of looking at all the states. It looks like there's a lot of states who haven't had much movement. So I checked in with them and said, hey, this is what we're looking at for the city of McCook. These are underwriting criteria. What do you think about this? How do you feel about funds? And he responded and he said, make sure that you get the security requirements with the other lender, make sure that that's all good. So I feel pretty confident, but I really am concerned about the June timeline. Other than that, we can rework it and figure it out. And I know Chris and David had started on the environmental review, so that's kind of another piece that we'll wait for. But I think, Chris, did you think that would be a pretty quick process?
Mm-hmm. We've already sent letters out, so they have a 30-day time, and they've already been issued, so we should have them back here shortly. And like I said, we did start to already apply as soon as we met with everybody. We have, I think, everything entered from the engineering standpoint, and then Leanne and Sarah have been working on the financial end of it. That's all entered, so it could actually happen. So, and that would lock us in at the 2%.
Yeah, 2.125.
There you go.
So when would we start construction then, Chris?
Probably a year from now.
2025? We'll take a year to build.
It'll take probably 24 months to build.
Yeah.
But
We talked about 2027, I know it's past.
Yep. So if we can, like I said, we'll go as fast as we can get it processed and in, but that was the other thing is if we have this money up front that we can use and arbitrage, that's the word I learned today. If you can put that in an account and actually use that, we can stockpile that and use it for our expenses.
So that's part of the discussion, and I have to be a little careful here. So as an underwriting firm, we can't advise you on deposit of bond proceeds, right? So I'm not saying any of that, especially with media here.
I am.
And federal securities. Chris is saying it. And he used the big word that we typed in the email arbitrage. But yeah, essentially you're at the point where the yield curve, honestly, on 20-year A-rated plus money, you're probably at an effective rate of around 4.6 to 4.7%. Deposit rate, arguably, for liquid money market has been above that over the last year, has been above that 5% mark. Some depositors are paying even close to 5.25%. So, correct, if by IRS guideline, if the city stays underneath $5 million in deposit initially, through commercial credit, they can deposit those funds, earning what yield is available to them and use those proceeds for construction, engineering, what have you. So that has been the discussion that we've had with Leanne, city staff, Pat, about kind of how we would do that. So the idea would be, the private funding initially out of the gate, use that, deposit those funds as you need to, use that to spend down through construction. And then because short-term yields are higher than long-term yields, we wait until the last second essentially to issue the note financing that USDA will take out so that we limit your interest expense. We also issue those in series. So we will have an ordinance for you. We tentatively plan to have that in June that will allow us to build that financing structure in place over the next 24, 36 months as you folks need it. But essentially we would just issue those notes in series of construction, stay in touch with Sarah and Chris and David and say, what do you anticipate for billables over the next 6 months? We'll issue notes to cover this expense, then issue a second remainder of notes, what have you, so that we kind of limit your interest expense, if that makes sense. So that's the overall idea. Any questions about that at all? The combined debt service you wouldn't see until 2027. Because USDA's first payment wouldn't be due until a year after the facility is actually closed on and their financing is put in place. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, council? Okay. All those in favor, vote yea, opposed nay.
5 votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
council comments?
I'd just like to say thank you to the chief and Kyle and Pat. Your work, the guys' work integrity is a reflection of your leadership. So I see nothing but great things from that. So yeah.
And I'd like to thank the Masons for traveling to McCook for the cornerstone for the new swimming pool. And they said they'll come back and do a cornerstone for the ballpark when we get that finished. So you can look forward to that, Kyle.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. All right. It is 6:15 and I declare this meeting adjourned.